Is the new Kia K4 worth it? We're showcasing the 2025 Kia K4 EX in current red over medium gray. You have 7 different exterior colors, 2 different interior colors, and you can get up to a turbocharged engine when you go to the GT line turbo, which will also change the IVT transmission that's in all the trims to an 8-speed automatic transmission. I'm Anthony from Hawkeye Rides, and I'm gonna go over some pros and cons. I'm gonna compare this against the competition to see if it's worth it. The K4 is going to have a fastback design. Starting up front has LED reflector headlights. They are auto on and off, amber LED daytime runnings, cubed LED front lights. That integrates into the newly worked tiger nose grille. You're gonna have the glossy black with the satin silver. The LX and the LXS will have a black with metal paint front fascia, and the GT line will have its own design elements. All of the K4s that are non-GT turbo changes what's housed underneath the hood. We have a standard 2.0 liter 4-cylinder multi-point injector producing 147 horsepower with 132 pound-feet of torque. This engine carries up into the GT line with the IVT automatic transmission, which is a intelligent variable transmission, basically a CVT transmission, achieving 29 mpgs for the city, 39 mpgs for the highway. This is not a hybrid, so you're getting excellent miles. You have the sport back design. That brings me to that question: do you think it's worth it? Wheels are going to start at 16-inch. 17-inch goes into the EX. 18-inch will only be option on the GTs, and the GT lines will add a multi-link rear suspension. Otherwise, it's a Torsum beam. The front is going to be standard with a McPherson strut front suspension. 43 horsepower more, 63 pound-feet of torque more going into the GT line turbo. But then you're also adding that additional 88 pounds opposed to the GT line, which ultimately is adding over 180 pounds to what the EX has. So when you're thinking about the transition, should I go into the turbo variant, you're going to be paying over 30 grand. It's going to change the whole game to the vehicle because now it's going to be a little bit more agile. When you have a Torsum beam, it's going to be a little bit more quiet in the interior. But when you have a multi-link, it's going to be a little bit more playful, taking bends in the road. So you have a pro or con here. And as for competition, a Civic to have specs similar to this is going to be around 30 grand. So then that makes this more of a worth it vehicle. Plus you get the best warranty in class when you go to Kia or Hyundai. Toyota is going to be the same thing. Going into a Corolla, it's going to be a lot smaller than this. And if you go up into a Camry, just to get a base model, which they're only hybrid variants, it's going to be over 30 grand now, especially when you take any box to get features that's going to be similar to this, because you don't get everything standard when you're going into those vehicles, opposed to going into the K4, you're going to have standard amenities going up different trim levels, which to me is a reason why it's worth it. LED taillights, the reworked design that cover nearly the whole rear. Now you can see that fastback design, but a con to me is it kind of looks like the K5 in a sense of the way they've done the rear, and there's no hatchback this year for 26. Kia is saying that they're going to give it to us, but as for right now, we only have a sedan, so you're actually losing some cargo capacity. The lower, matte black and satin aluminum. As for the Forte that this replaced, the pricing of the EX would be the GT, which would have 201 horsepower, which is more horsepower, that's also a turbocharged, than the GT line turbo that this has, and you're over 30 grand going that route. If you don't pick the GT for the Forte, you'll have the same power option as this, the same suspension layout as this, but you're also going to be paying a premium going into this for that fastback design, which is going to be similar to Honda. Honda and Toyota, they're going to have more horsepower and torque. They're going to get better MPGs because they also have a hybrid variant. Here, we only have a turbo or this 2-liter 4-cylinder engine, which ultimately is not going to be the best in MPGs. So that brings me back to the question, is it worth the price? Quick release going into 14.6 cubic feet of storage. Underneath the floor, gets a spare tire. Split fold the rear bench, pulling these tabs in the back. And that will fold down the seats at a 40-60 split to maximize the cargo capacity to the new K4. The key fob to the new K4. Manual seat adjustment, power seat adjustment start on the GT. The GT also will have heated front seats with a leatherette cloth seats. This is premium cloth, otherwise it's cloth as base and middle trim. The GT Turbo will have full leatherette. Nearly 30 inches of screen is what you're getting here. Let's fire it up. The dashboard is going to wrap into the door panels with 4 speakers standard. The LX and the EX has 6 speakers that goes into the GT, which will give us the Harman Kardon as an option. GT Turbo gets its standard. It is somewhat of a driver-focused setup, but I like the seamless air vents that go through the center part of the dashboard. So you have a 2-part here with physical buttons for the dual climate control, which you do not get that on the base trim. And the EX also gets this 5-inch screen for the climate control. This will also carry on into the GTs, and you have a 12.3 informational display with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto. It's wireless. Sirius XM AM FM streaming, Bluetooth audio, yet again with physical buttons here. Put it into reverse, we get a reverse camera. Click on the sub menu and you can expand that to the full screen, or you can just leave it for a tow lineup, which I don't know what you'd be towing, but the trajectory does expand out, going into a standard wireless charging pad. And every trim will have the 2 USB ports with a USB-C and a 12-volt here, leatherette around the shifter, and you have a ton of storage here or cup holders. This is going to be a little bit more sporty, but it still has somewhat of a soft texture. It's about the same size storage pocket as the prior. The steering wheel has been reworked. It's a 2-spoke, flat bottom, leatherette, multi-function. You get driving modes, which you have a total of 2 different modes for the 12.3 driver display. To change the layout, you click onto the settings or the setup here, and you just go into screen layout, in which now you can change the whole design to that. The squares is basically the design that Kia is going with. 4-inch is going to be a standard screen. Leg space is more than enough for the front occupants, as well as headroom. Ambient lighting goes into the GT Turbo. The door panel is going to have the same material that's on the seats. It's going to be a little bit soft here, one touch up and down for just the front windows with a long storage pocket. The hidden door handle to go to the back, that's the opening that you have to fit 3 more. There isn't any cup holders or armrests. USB ports with a storage tray. Air vents for the rear only on the GT Turbo. Storage only behind the passenger seat. The door panel is going to have the same segment that's found in the front, except you're only getting a bottle or flask holder. Sitting behind me, I can fit with leg space. The same thing with headroom. So they do a pretty decent job, even though it's a fastback design. It does kind of go a little bit lower with headroom, but it's still doable at 6'3". Knee, butt, leg, and shoulder space, it's actually relatively well. They don't compromise on giving you space, but sitting into the center headroom will be a little bit more tight. 147 horsepower with 132 pound-feet of torque. Is it going to be enough for a daily use? I think it's going to tick the box and give you a little bit more than what you need. Maneuverability is plenty. It's a compact car, so you do sit down. The ground clearance does feel a lot lower than it actually is, but I kind of like it. Gives you that sport car vibe, even though you're not getting anything really sporty other than the way the dashboard layout is. So comparing this against the prior, meaning the Forte, I think it's a little bit more cleaned up. They're giving you the essence of what you need. I do like that we have that 5-inch touchpad or screen for the climate control, and you still have the physical buttons. So they make sure that overall you're going to be able to operate this vehicle, whether you're tech savvy or you just like physical buttons. Storage still kind of lacks. Is it a get it or skip it vehicle? It's going to lead me to pros and cons to really suggest which way I would go with this. The pros, the technology, the styling, the comfort to the ride is good. The cons, you'd lose power if you go into the GT line turbo opposed to the Forte GT. It still has the IVT transmission, which kind of wish it had like an 8-speed automatic transmission. You can only option that on the GT Turbo. The screen layout is good too because it's very user friendly. You don't necessarily have to click into a lot of applications in order to get to one area, but you will find yourself clicking at least 1 or 2 times in order to get to certain destinations. Like for instance, if you want to change your screen layout, you have to click it, then you got to click screen layout, then you got to actually click what you want. And standard wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto is definitely a pro. The steering wheel, I like the design to it. I think it's going to look outdated a little bit quicker because the 2-spoke steering wheel is kind of like an 80s and 90s thing, which is cool when you're going retro, but I feel like since we're going kind of like a sportback look, trying to transform the Forte to a new age, we don't really want to add too much retro design, but let me know your thoughts on that. As for leg space in the back, it's great. Being able to fit a family in a smaller car like this for 25 grand-ish is awesome. Plus, you don't have to go up into the GT line to get every single feature. You can just go into the EX and save some money. You can also go to the LXS, get a smaller wheel so it's a little bit more comfortable. I know a lot of people in the comments typically say they don't like the bigger wheels. Well, Kia, they chose a 17-inch wheel. You only get the 18-inch wheel in the GT lines. Competition, though, is going to outperform it, especially with MPGs. They also have hybrid variants, so that gives me a reason to skip it because I am a huge fan of the Civic hybrid. I think they do a great job in the sense of giving a lot of power for a hybrid variant and pretty decent MPGs. And I'm not seeing that in the K4. The only thing that we're going to see for 26 is a hatchback, which is awesome. But at this price, it's more of a get-it vehicle because nothing is going to compete with it to get the features that you're getting. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, and if you're new to the channel, consider subscribing. Check out the next video, merchandise, website, memberships, live streams, TikTok and Instagram. Leave a comment and a like, and I'd like to thank Regal Kia for giving us this 2025 Kia K4 EX for our car review.